it's almost like predatory lending because people pay on this student loan for 25, 30 years and it doesn't go down. You still owe $80,000 after you've paid the loan back plus interest, but you still owe almost another loan. I decided to run because I felt helpless. I felt like we were losing rights that we should not have been losing rights. And then I started researching who was representing us and I didn't feel that he was representing us. So I decided to run for Congress. I said nobody else will, so I'll do it. I do. I believe that we need to do a complete overhaul of of our immigration policies. One, I feel that bipartisan bill that was presented should have passed because it was the first of all, it was the first attempt at it without the other side was getting more of what they wanted than what usually. So I think it should have been passed, but we know why it wasn't passed. I feel that we need to strengthen our border security by hiring more Border Patrol agents. We need to have a path to citizenship. We need to protect our DACA citizens. And we need to allow people who are seeking asylum to have their day in court faster than what they're doing now. And that'll require hiring more judges. I think we need to upgrade the border infrastructure. A wall just isn't it to say because you're either going to go above it or below it. But there are other technologies that we can use to modernize our border infrastructure. So I think that's why I say it's a comprehensive plan because I think we need to take all of those things into consideration and it's not just one thing that'll help us, it's all of that. Giving people who are already here, living here, and some who've been living here almost their whole lives, allowing them to become citizens so they can be productive. They can pay into Social Security. They can do all of those things if we allow them to become citizens. Well, the first thing I think that the Inflation Reduction Act is a good attempt. It's helping with prescription drug costs. We know that the government has capped insulin at $35 for Medicare recipients, and a third of Medicare recipients are on insulin. So that helps, and I think they're going to use it to even work with more drugs. So I think that's a good attempt. We probably need to work on reducing the federal deficit. That would help. My daughter who's 24, she said, "Mom, things are not how they were when you were 24," and that is so true because I remember when I got out of college, I was teaching and I was able to buy a car and pay rent and live comfortably. Well, they can't do that. Most people I know their kids still live with them. You know, they it's just that's just how it is because things are so expensive. I don't see how they can buy a home with the way they things are now. So I think we need to work on child care assistance for working families because that's hard and it's tough. Again, I remember paying $440 a month for child care for my daughter, and now it's like $1,200. So working class people can't afford that. So we need to work on that. We need to work on housing costs. I'm not sure, and I can't say right now what I would do, but I know that costs are way too high. And I know that the vice president has proposed something. So, of course, we want to look into that. The student loan forgiveness program, I think that's something that we should do. You have, it's almost like predatory lending because people pay on this student loan for 25, 30 years and it doesn't go down. You still owe $80,000 after you've paid the loan back plus interest, but you still owe almost another loan. So I think those are all areas that would help with inflation because it is hard right now for working families. if you remember, a lot of the subsidies were taken away with the last administration. So we need to reinstate subsidies. We need to provide subsidies for working class people. We have to think about working class people, because even though you're making money, you're not making enough money to buy good health insurance, or you're stuck with a job that you don't like just because you need the health insurance that the employer provides. So I think we just need to strengthen the Affordable Care Act. We know it's a good plan. It's helping us, helping people, and you go from there to maybe expand Medicaid to the working class, lowering prescription costs. Like I said, the Inflation Reduction Act has helped, but there's more. We can always do more, because even though it's helping with insulin, what about some of these other conditions where people need to rely on medication? We need to look into all of those. And I remember on social media they had, it was like a thanks Joe, and somebody said I think their prescriptions went from 2,000 a month to like 100 and something a month, and it's ridiculous that it's that high to begin with. But we have to do something to help reduce those costs. The John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act, I don't know if you've heard of it, but it would help in states where I hate to call it rogue states, but where you have the voter intimidation, you have disenfranchisement, you have them basically trying to suppress the vote. The extreme gerrymandering. My district is gerrymandered. So all of those are voter suppression techniques or tactics. And we would, if we had the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act, then we would have the state, if it's a state that habitually offended or disenfranchised its voters, then the government could say, hey, these are, you have to go to court, you have to show why these are not disenfranchising voters. That's what the protections we used to have before the Supreme Court basically gutted the Civil Rights Act. So I think if we pass that, it'll help with some of these problems we're having with voting. And nobody wants to go to jail for trying to vote and they can't. And that's the whole point, is to discourage you from voting or to intimidate you, to make you think, oh, if I vote, I can go to jail. So what's the point of voting? I mean, that's a right that you have as a United States citizen. I am a product of the public education system from kindergarten all the way to my JD. All of those, both of my degrees were from, or I have 4 degrees, two from LSU and two from Southern. Both are public systems. So I am a firm believer in the public education system. If you're pulling money away from public schools for private schools. Poor people cannot afford that. Even with a voucher, it's not enough money for poor kids to attend. So then what happens? Then you really have failing schools. The private schools don't have to go through all of the standards or have the same standards as public schools. So it's not fair, and I don't think it should be done. I think you should not. If you choose to send your child to a private school, that's fine. But public school is there, and if we invest in them and we have great public schools, then there's no need for a voucher or a private. Well, I want people to know that as a city councilwoman, that is, any municipal seat is a nonpartisan seat. So when I decide on an issue, I look at the issue to determine how it affects my constituents. I look to see how it would help the city of Iowa Colony, and I look to see what are the long-term effects, not just 5 years, 10, 20 years from there. So I think that the nonpartisan way of making decisions lends to bipartisanship. You have to have bipartisanship to be to effectively govern. You need differing views coming together and making decisions that are in what's the best for the the country, what's best for my district. And I think that I bring that in, just natural bipartisanship. I believe that there should be compromise, because if one side is happy and one side is not, that's not a good result. A compromise means that each side had to give up a little something to get what's best for everyone. And that's who I am. That's the background I have, and I want to take that into Congress and work for the people because I'm a public servant.